Donald Trump to speak soon at a rally in the key battleground state of New Hampshire, a state that could decide who becomes our next president. This is Outnumbered. I'm Sandra Smith, and here today, Harris Faulkner, co-host of After the Bell, Melissa Francis, radio talk show host Meghan McCain, and today's #OneLuckyGuy, the former governor of Arkansas and former presidential candidate, Mike Huckabee. And he is outnumbered, and good to have you on a busy day, sir.
Thank you. It is a busy day, and I am definitely outnumbered, no doubt about that. Delighted to be with all you guys today. It's going to be fun.
It's great to have you. So much to get to. Let's get started. Donald Trump set to speak at any minute now in the key swing state of New Hampshire. This, as some analysts say, the race could come down to that state's 4 electoral votes, giving the Republican nominee enough to win the White House. A new Suffolk University Boston Globe poll shows Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton now tied in the Granite State, both at 42%, as the candidates are ramping up their attacks in the final stretch.
Honestly, she has no right to be running. You know that. No right. If she were to win, it would create an unprecedented constitutional crisis that would cripple the operations of our government.
If Donald Trump were to win this election, we would have a commander-in-chief who is completely out of his depth and whose ideas are incredibly dangerous.
She is disqualified for running for president of the United States. She's disqualified. Most dishonest person ever to run for office.
Offering a dog whistle to his most hateful supporters. He retweets white supremacists and spreads racially tinged conspiracy theories. Donald Trump was endorsed by the official newspaper of the Ku Klux Klan.
Meantime, a new ABC News Washington Post tracking poll shows a tight race nationally. Clinton is now up by just 3 points, 47 to 44%. Did I mention it's just 4 days left to go, Governor? Yeah. All right, so New Hampshire, Donald Trump is campaigning there today. He's about to speak at a rally. How important is that state?
Every state is important. New Hampshire is one of those he needs to win. But, you know, you could look at Florida, Nevada, Ohio, Pennsylvania. They're all important. I'm just going to tell you, I think Donald Trump wins Tuesday night. I think it's going to be a significant win. I don't think it's going to be as close as everybody thinks, because there are a lot of people who are going to vote for Trump who don't want to tell anybody, because they don't want to be called a racist or a bigot or a xenophobe or whatever they're going to get called if they do. But I'm hearing it from every kind of person I talk to as I travel across this country, from flight attendants to servers in restaurants and cab drivers and bellmen in hotels, people that don't normally vote for a Republican. But they're not just voting, they're voting with enthusiasm.
Where's the surprise going to be then, Governor? Because right now the electoral math is working in favor of Hillary Clinton. The polls show she is still up nationally. Where's the surprise going to be? That's why we do have our eyes on New Hampshire at this moment.
Well, Pennsylvania, for example, why would the Clintons be going there on the eve of election if they were really that much in control of Pennsylvania? The truth is they're not. They're putting every big gun they have in Pennsylvania the night before the election. You never go to a place you've already won. You go to the places you've got to either shore up or you're worried about. They're worried about Pennsylvania. That's why they're going there Monday night.
Well, and I think they're worried about a lot of states. I mean, this hour alone, Bill Clinton is in Colorado. He has 3 stops in Colorado right now. On this very day, on this Friday. It's interesting. I mean, you talk about maybe 1 or 2 states, but they're all kind of in play.
Well, you've got North Carolina, but I think Trump wins in North Carolina. Yeah. Iowa is now tilted toward Trump. There's other states. Arizona, I think, Meghan, is looking really good for Donald Trump. A couple of weeks ago,
Virginia is fascinating, because Hillary Clinton was so confident in Virginia. She pulled out. She didn't have any campaign stops there, any headquarters there. And now it's back in play for Donald Trump. So I think the governor is 100% accurate. The other thing I want to emphasize is my good girlfriends in Phoenix who don't pay a lot of attention to politics, who are very mixed on this election. Do you know what has pushed a lot of them over the edge? Is this Anthony Weiner stuff. The idea that people in Hillary Clinton's campaign knew he was sexting underage teenagers. A really good friend of mine was like, they can say whatever they want about Donald Trump saying things. You're talking about condoning pedophilia. And that, for a lot of my girlfriends, has really made the switch.
All right, so I want to bring this back, Melissa, to New Hampshire, because both candidates candidates, by their actions, are showing that this is very much in play, and it is. Among New Hampshire independent voters, 52% said that the FBI announcement made them less likely to vote for Clinton. 40% said it wouldn't affect their vote at all.
You know, it's so interesting. New Hampshire is such an interesting place. It's where I had my first on-camera job. I mean, they're so into politics. Everybody has a very informed opinion. They also kind of like the spotlight, you know, and like to be unpredictable, I think. And they like this idea that they're kind of turning one way or the other based on what's going out, that they're that plugged in. It'll be interesting to see which way it goes. I've got my eyes on Florida. I mean, Florida,
So
and I
did
know
they.
it sounds so obvious, but Florida is where it always comes back down to. I have family in Florida. I mean, people are very tense. They're watching it.
So you're watching that. What about Marco Rubio has been the difference for Donald Trump, do you think?
Well, that's interesting. I mean, they've seemed to work together to kind of draft off each other, which isn't that an interesting way for this to end? I mean, it really tells you what a long road we have been down. Two people that were really at each other's throats who now in the end need each other.
Need each other's throats.
Each other. Yeah. I mean, it has been an interesting race all around. I mean, I'm thankful to have had a front seat to it because it really has been one for the ages. And I always love, too, later how we look back and say, oh, you could tell it was going that way at the time.
You won't
I want
say
to
that
say right
this time.
here and now, sitting here, wow, it is hard to tell what's going on.
But there are minor differences between Donald Trump and Marco Rubio, let's say, compared to the differences between anybody and Hillary Clinton. We're talking about somebody who has run, for all practical purposes, a criminal enterprise in the name of the State Department and a nonprofit foundation that gave less than 6% to actual charity, and the rest of it was just to enrich them personally, their friends, travel and live like princes and princesses. People are sick of that.
I also think it's as simple as hope and change is a big fat lie. People are really disappointed in the last 8 years. Hillary is just an extension of Obama, but worse and more corrupt. You may not know what you get with Donald Trump, but you know it's not more of the same.
You know, just last on this point, I have a question about how we can still talk about swinging left and right in these states when so many people have already voted. Maybe we are overshooting the idea of that early in-person voting and not giving enough deference to Tuesday.
Well, I think that there's still plenty of time. To Megan's point, look, I made this comment that I think Donald Trump is like a car that bumps a lot of other cars and dents fenders everywhere. He's just, you know, kind of reckless out there. But his car is pointed in the right direction. With Hillary, you have a drunk driver driving the wrong way on the freeway, and a lot of people are going to get hurt and killed.
Wow.
That's the difference between Trump and Hillary, or as I call him, the happy warrior Trump and the very unhappy Hillary. It's Trump versus the grump. That's what we have.
Wow. All right.
Well, when you put it that way.
How do I really
Glad
feel?
you're here.
Yeah.
How do you really feel? All right. Some big chances in other important states now. Changes, I should say. We already told you about New Hampshire. Fox's decision team is moving it from lean Democrat to toss-up. It also shifted Ohio from toss-up to lean Republican. And when it comes to Indiana and Missouri, Fox has changed them from lean Republican to solid Republican. This is Donald Trump's lead also appears to be growing in some red states that Hillary Clinton was hoping to flip. According to a new NBC Wall Street Journal Marist poll, Trump now holds a convincing lead in Arizona, ahead by 5 points. We just alluded to that, as well as in Texas, where he's up by 9. In Georgia, Trump is also ahead, but just by a sliver, 1 point. Governor?
I don't buy it. Donald Trump is going to win Georgia by far larger margin than 1 point.
Wow.
It's just not realistic that Georgia, who has now sent 2 Republican senators, is a solidly Republican state with a Republican governor, Republican majorities in their House and Senate, that they're going to really scratch their heads about whether they're going to vote for Hillary Clinton while she's under criminal investigation, one of the most liberal people. Georgia's a very pro-life state, even among Democrats, and you're not going to have somebody getting the votes of people for a candidate who's for partial birth abortion, taxpayer funded, and the expansion of Planned Parenthood. Ain't going to happen. Just mark that one down.
Okay, so going into this final weekend before Election Day, where would you tell each of these candidates to put their powder, if you will? Obamacare for Trump, or does he kind of talk about Clinton Foundation and emails? And for Hillary Clinton? Does she continue to try to defend herself or go negative on Donald Trump? What do you think?
I think Hillary should huddle with her lawyers and talk about strategy for the future. That's what I would suggest for her.
The governor throwing some shade.
Okay, you just teed that one up for me, Harris.
No.
What can I say? Look, I think she's got to try to give people a reason to vote for her, because right now there's a lot of reasons to vote against her. Her election, I think, brings crisis to the process. Donald Trump needs to remind people how rough it's been under Obamacare, how we've been just decimated in our respect around the world. The Iranian deal, a disaster. Our friendship with Israel at stake. The fact that our economy is in tatters. The job rates totally in the toilet. Just ask people, are you better off? If you'd like some more of this on steroids, Hillary's your girl. She'll give you a bunch more.
We're 4 days out, so we got to work on the math a little bit more here, Governor, because if we look at the electoral map again, if Hillary wins the states that have already been rated solid Democrat, along with those that are leaning towards her right now, she'd have 283 electoral votes. You need 270. Where do they come from?
Can I add on to what the governor was saying? There is something in politics called the Bradley effect, where that is the $64,000 question. I know people in my life that don't want to say they're voting for Trump because they live in major cities and they don't want to be harassed. They're actually called the Ivanka Trump voter if it's a young professional woman. And I think that you do have to keep this into thought, that there are people, even for me, when I go out, I don't want to be harassed about being a Republican all the time. This is a real thing that happens. So I think there is this $64,000 question. Are people being honest and candid when they're being told?
So then my question would be, if you look at the Electoral College, how are they represented? Because, I mean, there is something called the faithless electoral voter, which is really scary, because those are people who don't vote in line with what they've been told to do, or they just fail to vote, if you will. So, I mean, there's that element that we would pray that we wouldn't see, but
it's hurting
how does
her.
What you're
African Americans aren't coming out for her in the way that they came out for Obama.
Electoral vote count, though.
Because it means more women coming out, especially when we're discussing the Ivanka Trump voter. We're talking about young, single, college-educated white women, which is the creme de la creme that both Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump need. And I just read this article about this, and I really think there's a possibility that people are lying about who they are voting for. I don't know, but it is an old adage in politics. It's called the Bradley effect.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I saw that anecdotally. I feel like I need those people looking at the map, like you're saying. I mean, Larry Sabato said something really interesting the other day, that more than 50% of the people who are quote unquote undecided end up just not voting.
Right.
So when you talk about trying to sway those people, those aren't really real votes. I think it spreads out in the electoral map. I heard Guy Benson talking a couple hours ago, very smartly, talking about Florida, Ohio, and Iowa going for Trump, maybe North Carolina. Then he needs 11 more beyond that. Those are some of those spots where I think you see what you're saying.
It may be electoral split is what he was talking about in some places too. I'm just curious, because he needed to pick up another 11 according to Guy Benson.
Right. Yes, exactly.
Right? So I mean, because that's really where the math comes down. You've run. How do you scoop it up? This is not like going down and getting your neighbor to vote. That's not what an electoral vote is.
All the traditional rules don't matter here, because Donald Trump is a very different kind of candidate. He's a disruptive candidate. He's been a divisive candidate. And to what Megan is saying about young women who don't want to admit they're voting for Trump, they're going to go do it because they know that their choice is, they look at, do I want a safe neighborhood for my kids? Do I want educational opportunities? Doesn't matter whether you're black or white. You'd rather have school choice than to be stuck in a government school that fails your kids. You look at the difference philosophically and administratively, and this becomes a much easier lift. And that's why, look, a lot of people who are hardworking union folks, they're not going to tell their union hall, by the way, I'm voting for Trump, because they don't want to get screamed at. But they're pro-life. They're also church-going people. They know Hillary holds them in utter contempt. She considers them a basket of deplorables. They're going to vote for Trump.
All right. On Election Day, Fox News Channel is the only place to be. You know it. From dawn until the wee hours of the night, we will have coverage from all over the nation and, of course, the very best analysis for you. And we want to be your part of the election night coverage, your place to stop. If you voted or are getting ready to vote, post your picture on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram with the hashtag, oh, look, Melissa's writing it down. Fox News 2016. Hashtag Fox News 2016. You could see it on air on election night from our brand new studio, and it really is something special. Be part of it. All right, Donald Trump will take the stage very soon. It's a rally in the battleground state of New Hampshire. We've been talking about the importance of that state this hour. With his message, will it be with 4 days left in the race? What will he be talking about specifically? We're live in the campaign trail. And his wife stumped this week as well, Melania Trump, making her first campaign speech since the Republican National Convention in July. So why now? And can she make a difference this late in the game? Stay with us.
All right, well, as Donald Trump is campaigning in the battleground state of New Hampshire today, his wife speaking on the campaign trail for the first time since the convention. Melania Trump addressing the crowd near Philadelphia yesterday in an effort to appeal to suburban women, delivering an anti-bullying message.
I'm an immigrant, and let me tell you, no one values the freedom and opportunity of America more than me, both as an independent woman and as someone who immigrated to America. Do we want a country that respects women and provides them with equal opportunity? Yes. Our culture has gotten too mean and too rough. It is never okay when a 12-year-old girl or boy is mocked, bullied, or attacked.
So, Melania Trump out on the trail. Is she helping him?
I think so. I think she's charming. She's beautiful. She's also very intelligent and strong. There's nobody who can look at Melania or be around her and think that she's some shrinking violet, because she's not. She's an extraordinarily strong, independent, thoughtful, intelligent woman, and she comes across that way. I thought her speech was great. She's been banged up by the liberals because they say, how could dare she could be talking about bullying and cyberbullying. I'll tell you how. It's real simple. She's talking about 12-year-olds getting beat up. You know, those of us who entered the arena, we know we're getting in there with a bunch of lions. We're probably going to get our flesh torn off. We get that. It's different from what you do in your entire engagement with adults who have chosen to be on the arena floor versus what's happening to kids. That's not hard to figure out.
But Megan, we know Donald Trump needs a lot of help with women. Does this reach out to more women? Does it help?
I think it's smart, especially in the area of Pennsylvania where they sent her. I'm glad she's giving more speeches. I wish she had done it sooner. My only criticism of her is that I want to know why you love Donald Trump. What's your relationship like? What are you like when you go home at night? Family members of elected officials, much like Governor Huckabee's daughter, Sarah, your role is to humanize the candidate. And it's not that I don't think going after cyberbullying is both important and significant, that this is her choice of whatever, but her platform is going to be as first lady. I just want to know, from beginning to end, Ivanka, all of them, I just want to know what it's like when the cameras are off.
See, I think that was actually a clever move, and bear with me for a second here, because immediately people pounced on her, saying, how could she possibly be talking about people being mean on the internet when that's what her husband is known for? Maybe the subliminal message they're sending is there is someone in the White House who cares about this. Maybe she's going to be in more control. Maybe she's going to persuade him to get off the Twitter. Maybe she's the one who's been doing it. I mean, maybe that's part of the message that they're sending. I also loved the irony yesterday when people got on Twitter and on social media to mean tweet her for saying that you shouldn't be mean online. I'm like, you realize what you're doing here, right, people?
Well, and how much on the wrong side of history are those people when you're talking about cyberbullying among children? Come on, some of us are moms here on the couch, parents here on the couch. How can that be not a good topic? That's a great topic, no matter who's talking about it. But I think the most powerful word she spoke, given the entire range of things that we've seen this season, that's been well over a year and a half, is I am an immigrant. And this is how I chose to love freedom in this country so much and to do it legally. Those are powerful words.
Her affirmation of what it means to be a U.S. citizen.
That's true.
And that many of us, I guess all of us sitting on the couch, we are citizens by accident of how the genetic code worked. She is a citizen by choice. She could have lived in any country on earth. She's chosen to be here. She did it the right way. And I think that speaks volumes.
But as far as playing to the female vote, there are those who say it's a little too little too late having her out on the trail now. Where was she when the video surfaced and all the allegations came out?
So rough on her.
Well, they had been rough on her, and her presence wasn't really there, as well as his daughter.
She was crucified after the RNC, crucified by the media. And there is a tradition in presidential politics to just hammer conservative spouses as much as possible. Governor Huckabee knows that. I know that better than anyone. There's a triple standard for the conservative women that stand behind the conservative men. I don't blame her. I was surprised that she came out.
Say this,
I'm glad to see she is.
When you were talking about the Billy Bush context of that tape and all the lewd comments that had been said, by Donald Trump. It didn't help that she said, oh, just teenagers. I mean, I think the preparation maybe for that was not as strong as it could have been, but she's had some time since then. And that was really the first time we'd heard her since the convention. So, I mean, there have been some opportunities, but I think this was her strongest one.
It's easy to forget what Michelle Obama was like on the campaign trail in 07 and 08 before she has become the person that she is now, which is a great orator. She was not fantastic on the campaign trail for a long time. It takes time. This isn't something that comes natural to spouses. I wish people would just give her a little bit of a break.
All right, all good points.
Well
As
said.
Americans get set to head to the polls, there's growing concern about cyber attacks and voter fraud. Officials say nearly every state has asked the feds for help shoring up their election systems, but 2 have already been hacked. Should we be worried? Plus, as the clock ticks down, 2 top Republicans who have complicated relationships with Donald Trump are hitting the campaign trail on his behalf.
We continue to wait to hear from Donald Trump. He is set to speak at a rally in New Hampshire with just 4 days to go before Election Day. And on the trail, it's been a rallying cry for the GOP ticket, especially VP nominee Mike Pence, telling the Republican Party it's time to come home. And now House Speaker Paul Ryan, who has tried to distance himself from Donald Trump throughout the campaign season, will appear with Pence tomorrow in Wisconsin. His camp putting out a statement saying, in part, Wisconsin is a battleground state and every single Republican needs to get out and vote. This coming a day after Trump's former rival Ted Cruz also made his first appearance on the campaign trail, urging people to vote for the GOP nominee and Republicans up and down the ballot. I'm going to go to you first, Governor Huckabee. I think Mike Pence has been a really good ambassador between people who had trouble with Trump and now saying come home on Election Day. How much of an asset do you think he's been?
Mike Pence has been a great asset. Look, he's given comfort to faith voters. He's given comfort to fiscal conservatives, to people who are concerned about experience in government. He meets all of those criteria, checks the boxes. He's also a great guy, and he's a very articulate guy. And I think it is important to see these Republicans coming back home. Where are they going to go? If they sit this one out, or if they act like they can't vote for Trump, they're voting for Hillary. And I think a lot of them finally, the light bulb came on, and they realized that they don't want to be held responsible for Hillary Clinton being president of the United States. I'm glad to see some of the former presidential candidates who had not been very clear about where they're going to stand. Some others we're still waiting on them. And look, that pledge that we signed, it wasn't just a verbal one. I want to say something a lot of people don't know. Why was it so important for us to sign that pledge? Was that unfair? No, it was very fair for the RNC to ask us to sign. Here's why. When you're a presidential candidate, you get access to millions of dollars worth of data and information and research that the party has assembled. Now, in exchange for the access to that data, information, and list, you pledge you're going to support the party nominee. That's a fair deal. So if a person says, yeah, I'll take all those benefits, and then say, but I'm not going to support the nominee.
So did Donald Trump do that?
You bet he did. He signed that pledge. Very publicly he signed it. We all did.
So why wouldn't they reciprocate and do what they said they were going to do?
Good question. I'm mad at them, and they're friends of mine. But no, I'm mad at them because they violated their word. Their word is dirt, and I just feel like that if you sign that piece of paper, by gosh, live up to it, because that's what you agreed to do, and you took the benefits. Now pay the price.
The $64,000 question right now is if Ted Cruz has ultimately hurt himself by making this big stand at the convention, saying vote with your conscience, and then slowly coming back.
I don't think so.
It really affected his approval ratings.
I don't think so, because he lives in a border state. So if you deliver a border state in a time when immigration, illegal immigration, and crossing the border and building walls has been such a focus, and you deliver that state at that time on principle for the candidate, for the Republican nominee or whatever, I don't think that hurts you politically, because I think people will think that you reached up higher above your personal position against that person and voted for your state.
It had a real effect
What I do
originally,
find
though.
interesting, though, I don't think any of it counts until they vote. So I thought it was interesting that Paul Ryan this week made sure he got out there that he had voted in Janesville, Wisconsin, and that his vote was cast for the Republican nominee. Put that to bed. So no matter what else happens, he's cast his vote. And that sets the example.
But where would Donald Trump be in a much different place today, 4 days from the election, if he had gotten earlier support from these key Republicans?
Yeah, it would have helped him a whole lot, because it would have solidified that the party had already rallied around him. The Democrats are really good about circling the wagons around their people, no matter how ridiculous it may seem to do it. Republicans tend to to be a lot more independent. You know, you have a lot of them that say, no, I'm not coming in unless this condition or that condition is met. I just find that offensive. I'm a Republican. I made that choice. So when her dad runs, I'm out there getting hoarse, screaming to the last moment of the election for him. Mitt Romney. Mitt and I were rivals in 2008, but I went out there in 12 and I campaigned for him. That's what we do. And I just think that if you're going to be a part of a party, sign up, saddle up, ride with the horse you got.
Bernie Sanders looks like he's in pain on the campaign trail with Hillary Clinton, though. The pictures that came out, he's barely hugging her.
Yeah.
He's looking like he's just angry to be there. And
he's not feeling the burn.
He is not feeling it.
There's no burn being felt.
Why
He
now?
is not
Absolutely.
feeling it. It's really entertaining.
Just 4 days before Americans head to the polls, new concerns about cyber attacks and voter fraud. A law enforcement official telling Fox that 48 states have approached the Department of Homeland Security to help shore up their election systems. And in the last several months, a senior intel source says that Illinois and Arizona systems were successfully infiltrated. In Illinois, the hackers reportedly stole voter data, and in Arizona, they penetrated an internet-facing system and, quote, looked around. But we're told the U.S. government has high confidence in the election system and insists that the skewing of a vote count would be extremely difficult. I think this is one of the most important issues of this election, is this idea that we have to be able to say that it was a free and fair election, that there wasn't interference. And even when you bring up this idea of voter fraud and anyone who says it gets vilified, it's important that people feel confident. What do you think about this, Governor?
Well, look, voter fraud is real. I don't know that it swings an election at the national level because there's so many votes being cast. But look, in my home state of Arkansas, you had a state representative who went to prison for paying people $5 a vote. You had a city councilman in East Arkansas who had 125 absentee ballots on his kitchen table, writing them up. So it exists. I'm more worried, not so much about that kind of thing where a person votes twice. I'm worried about the electronic voting and whether those machines have absolute foolproof integrity, because that's the one that's much harder to catch than it is somebody who just cycles back through the parking lot and comes in and votes a different name.
And Harris, that is certainly what we're talking about here is the cyber level, because we all know, I mean, every system is under attack every day. You know, if you have a credit card, a bank account, I mean, that there's constant tampering. So why would it not be attempted, at least, at the voting level?
So this is an opportunity for elections officials. This is really when politics are local, right? This is their opportunity to stand up in their local communities and to say these are the steps that we've taken, and to really start some good communication in these smaller towns and neighborhoods and then fan out from there. I think that's critical. I think that us looking from afar into a different state is going to be really difficult to do, as we saw with Florida and the hanging chads. It was those local election officials that had to figure all that out. That being said, I know the Associated Press has reported, because people have some concerns about impersonation fraud, 1 billion votes cast since 2000 in elections between 2000 and 2012. They only found about 3 dozen accounts of that. So, I mean, that is something that we can look to, that they are catching that impersonation fraud. But electronically, I think these election officials have got to be honest with us about what they're doing to make sure it doesn't happen.
I think as far as what we report on all the time, Melissa, on the business side, and businesses just sinking, I mean, millions and millions of dollars to prevent hacks like this from occurring, it makes you wonder, as an American voter, what we're doing to protect our election system to keep it fair in this country. I mean, do we need to be doing more, considering this is sort of inevitable based on the technology that we have?
Well, and you have to keep in mind, a lot of counties and individual precincts are using very old technology. This is not something that is an intentional part of the, let's say, local officials. They're operating with the budgets they have, and sometimes they can't modernize and put the security systems in place. A word of thanks. We need to pause. All those people who volunteer and are election officials, there are thousands of them across America who sit there and day after day, early voting and all day long during. We owe our heartfelt thanks to those folks, because it's a thankless job and a tough one. And in no way are we besmirching the integrity of the poll workers when we say we're concerned about ballot security. And I just want to make that very clear. And I know nobody said that, but there's a lot of hard work behind the election scenes.
I'm glad you brought that up, because we are calling on them to do more now. They've got to be watchdogs in even a bigger way.
Go ahead, Ben.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think voting in general needs a lot of reforming. I would like it to be easier for people to register. People still get confused. I'm actually been a part of an organization called Why Tuesday that's trying to move voting to the weekend so people don't necessarily have to miss work in order to vote.
Or maybe
I think we could take, or two-day voting, anything that would make this easier for, modern working people who have double jobs, many children. It's very complicated for people. It shouldn't be this hard.
That's a great point. All right, down to the wire in the 2016 race. Hillary Clinton's planning a final rally on Monday in a major battleground state. She will be joined by the Obamas along with Bill and Chelsea. Will her star surrogates have an impact on voters in the final stretch? We're going to debate it coming up.
Hillary Clinton is bringing out her top surrogates for a final rally in Philadelphia Monday night. Tonight, Election Eve, we're talking about. She'll be joined by President Obama and the First Lady, who Clinton has been leaning heavily on as she tries to energize millennials and minority voters. Bill and Chelsea Clinton also expected to be there on Monday in the battleground state of Pennsylvania, which is seen as a firewall Clinton needs to win. Melissa, I'm going to come to you first on this. When it comes to surrogates, what works and what doesn't?
I mean, it's so interesting. I don't think Jay-Z getting out there, a lot of people want to hear him sing. I'm not sure him getting out there and stumping for Hillary feels very impassioned or very authentic. It was one thing when he was stumping for President Obama. I also think one of the most effective surrogates this time around has been Michael Moore for Donald Trump.
Interesting.
Talking about the forgotten man or forgotten person.
Yep.
I mean, the person in Michigan who has played by the rules, who is working so hard day after day. They're not getting the handouts of the people who aren't working. They're not on the inside circle getting that access, that pass. And instead, he's really said, I understand the Trump voter, you're kind of missing it. And he's outlined the case very well. It's not what he means to do, but it is the exact person who has been inflamed by this system and really, dare I say, screwed over by how things have been.
Such an interesting example because that forgotten person in Michigan looks like everybody. There's not a specific demographic. It's just a person who hasn't had a job in a really long time.
Or has a job and is working so hard and still can't make ends meet and is still paying their taxes and doing their thing. And it's like, why am I falling behind?
So Michael Moore put out this video and he said he understands why people will vote Trump.
Well, 40 years of wage stagnation.
Yep.
40 years of wage stagnation. People's homes foreclosed on. People lost their jobs. They've lost their pensions. They're working 2 jobs to replace the one they used to have. This is the frustration. Hillary, does she understand that? She most certainly does not. Is she sympathetic to it? She says she is, but if you read the WikiLeaks, you find out she really feels like all those people are the great unwashed of America, and she shouldn't bother with them. Folks at Wells Fargo, they're doing fine. Folks at AIG, they're okay. Goldman Sachs, humming along just great. But you know what Michael Moore said, and I thought the most graphic point, I won't be quite as graphic as he was, but he basically said the election of Donald Trump is essentially the middle finger to the power elites and to say to them, now it's our turn.
Okay, go ahead. I was just going to ask you about Chelsea Clinton because in Philadelphia, Hillary Clinton's also going to be bringing her out. And I'll ask you the same question I just asked about Melania and Donald Trump. Did Melania help Donald Trump? Does Chelsea help her mother when she goes out and speaks on her behalf?
I think in many ways she does, but her connection to the Clinton Foundation and being part of a family enterprise probably doesn't give her the same cachet that it would have if she were completely independent of the foundation. The foundation has become toxic. That's the thing. It has become toxic. People look at it and say, really? You've raised hundreds of millions of dollars and less than 6% actually goes to charitable causes. The rest of it is travel all over the place, conferences at 5-star resorts, and incredible staffing of $53 million.
What Melissa just called it was a slush fund.
Yep.
You mentioned something earlier this hour, Megan, about the role of the family when we were talking about the Trump family and how they're really called upon to soften. But for Hillary Clinton, it's got to be more than that. Her husband has to tout the economy. He has to tout the things that she's not able to really, I would say, articulate as well right now because of all the stuff that's going on with the email scandal and everything else.
What's fascinating to me more than Bill and Chelsea is the fact that the Obamas are out there campaigning as hard as they possibly can, saying this is about our legacy, this is about me as the first black president. African Americans are coming out to vote in the same way that they did for him. I'm shocked they haven't made more of an impact. As far as Chelsea is concerned, I think if you're a liberal woman living in a $10 million apartment here in New York City, you relate to her great. I think if you're a working woman across America, it's a much harder sell. Same criticism I have of Chelsea that I have of Melania. Just tell me what it's like when when the cameras are off.
She tries
something. It's not good enough. And honestly, if either of these people want to ask me, well, I don't know if I wouldn't help the Clintons, but if they ask me, there are ways to do it. It is not an impossible task. You just have to tell humanizing stories. I'm not sitting here just because Governor Huckabee's sitting here, but Sarah Huckabee does it perfectly. She was always a great surrogate for you. There are really ways. I would say I was a great surrogate for my father. There are ways to do it to humanize you. I don't really care about the actual work she does. I want to know what it's like being a daughter, especially after everything you've been through with both Bill and Hillary Clinton as your parent.
Well, we'll be seeing a lot of them over the next 4 days. Get to know us. Okay, it's no secret. This election has been very polarized. That's putting it lightly.
Well, can we all just get along?
Yes. Yes, we can.
Well, apparently not so much. A very polarizing race between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, and now a Pew survey finding nearly 60% of Hillary supporters say they have a hard time respecting someone who backs Donald Trump. On the other hand, just 40% of Trump supporters say the same of Clinton backers. I'm just going to leave this one open-ended for you, Governor. What do you make of that?
Well, I'm not that surprised. If you look at the comments, like, for example, my Facebook or Twitter, and you see the kind of reactions that I get from the left, it's just, I find it amusing. Megan and I were talking about it earlier, that people are so angry. They don't engage you on what you've said or the substance of it. It's just they say things like, you should delete your account. You shouldn't be allowed to tweet. And I'm thinking, why are you following me, you dopehead? If you're that desperate for something to do, just don't follow me. It's not hard.
Well, we're going to leave it on that note. You know why? Because
why
breaking news changes everything. Donald Trump has just stepped up to the lectern. This is the great state of New Hampshire, and we're going to watch and listen together.